So I'm going to apologise in advance for some of the sound issues with this video. During the filming of the pressing video, my camera and my sound recorder had a bit of an accident.
Daddy, Alan did that. No, I didn't. Alan did it.
I think I might have done that actually.
Now fortunately, the camera was okay, but unfortunately it took me a while to realise that the sound recorder had fallen into one of the tubs that we were catching the drips of apple juice from. And it got more than a little bit wet. Fortunately, it's now back in working order, but some of the filming that we've done since, yeah, well, you might notice the sound's not so great. Now, in the video where I went out into the forest, if you haven't watched that, I got a whole stack of these bush poles, and this is the first video where I'm starting to work on them. Unfortunately, working with round lengths of timber, it's not as easy as squared stock, so it can be a bit tricky. So after struggling a little bit, I decided I needed a better solution. So the first thing I did was cut some of the narrower, skinnier lengths down to the length that I wanted them. And when you're working with any round timber, no matter where you are in the world, you have to be very aware of what's heartwood and what's sapwood. Sapwood is very prone to rot, even in rot-resistant timbers, even in insect-resistant timbers. Generally, the sapwood is still vulnerable to attack. Now, with many species in many parts of the world, you can get away with just removing the bark, and when you do that, the wood dries out faster, and when the sapwood dries out, it's less vulnerable to attack, and sometimes that's enough. Like, you won't get fungal attack, you won't get rot in dry wood, because the fungi need a certain amount of moisture in the wood in order to grow and eat the wood. But in Australia, we have these group of beetles called the licted beetles, and I'm pretty sure you get them in other parts of the world, but the Australian ones are particularly, ferocious. They will devour the sapwood from pretty much any eucalypt species within less than 5 years. Sometimes within a year. So whenever you're using bush poles like this, when you're doing your design, you can only factor on the heartwood doing any of the work. And so whenever you're doing the joinery, you have to make sure that you cut all the sapwood away so that you're joining heartwood to heartwood. Because if you don't, and in 2, 3, 4 years time, and all the sapwood's gone, you're going to have a joint that's not holding itself together. So whether it's a lap joint or a mortise and tenon joint, or even if you're using screws and bolts, the joint has to be in the heartwood. Any part of the joint that's sapwood is basically is temporary. So this is one of the hundreds of beetle larvae that I found as I was taking the bark off these logs. You can feed them to your chooks, use them as a really good fishing bait apparently, or you can even eat them. But you don't have to take away all the sapwood on a piece of wood that you're using. You just have to take away the wood where you're going to be doing your joints.
Well done. You're getting better at it.
So working with the regular timbers, you've got to take a different approach when it comes to marking at your joints. There's no use of a square, there's no, you're not using rulers and stuff. You just got to basically fit one piece to fit another. So what I'm doing here is just marking where the one timber meets the other, putting a score line with the saw, and I'll cut, and I'm going to be doing half lap joints. So I'll cut one side, and then I'll mark on the other side, but when I'll do is I'll cut to the inside of the mark so that I've got to create a tight joint. I'm still getting used to these super hard woods. Like where we used to live, up on the hill country, much higher rainfall, different species. A lot of the woods there are pretty close to things like white oak or English oak, except maybe a tad harder. A little bit further north, down in the low country where it's hotter and drier, different set of species, much harsher growing conditions, and the woods are just phenomenally hard. I haven't done many videos lately. I think it's been about 3 or 4 weeks since I've really done any filming and editing and posting. And that's because I was a bit disappointed in how the last real video that I did was the pressing video. Like all that work, all that build up, and I could understand why a lot of people weren't sort of following along the whole process, because it's a bit full on, and people maybe the ins and outs of the woodworking aren't of interest to anyone. But I was really hoping that the pressing video would be would be more popular, but yeah, it wasn't. But one of the things that someone said to me is that, well, maybe it's just too far above people's head, the fact that you're going from trees to finished piece with axes and hand tools. Maybe that's just a bit too full on for people. So in this video and in the next series, I'm going to be really simplifying things. A much smaller tool set, a much more, for want of a better term, normal set of tools, and using techniques that I guess are much more practical, much more real world kind of applications, the kind of things that, if you're on a farm, you need to get something done, well then this is something I would do, rather than the labours of love, which is the massive hand tool projects. Now I'm still going to be doing those, it's just, I guess I'm just trying to mix it up a little bit. So what I've done here is I've cut the first half lap just into the bottom piece of wood. That's marked out, and that's a pretty tight fit for the upper piece of wood. Then I'm marking the one corner on one side and then one corner on the other side, and then do the same thing for the other side of the joint. And the way you do that is you cut slightly to the inside of the line rather than on the line, so you're getting a quite tight fit. And then you put the joint together and you see how it's sitting. And if it's not sitting, good enough, then you take off the bits that are high until the two surfaces are mating. And you just keep on just doing that until you get a good fit. Now, because these bits of timber are relatively small, I didn't want to use a wooden dowel or peg to hold them together, because once I've drilled the hole, there's not going to be a lot of timber left over. Modern age, I could have used an impact driver and a screw. That would have worked really well. But this is a method called twitching. And it's really great because it's just so simple. You just need a piece of wire and something like a screwdriver, and you can hold two bits of anything together basically for as long as you want. I did make a mistake though, in that I should have removed the sapwood off the back of that piece of wood. Unfortunately, as the sapwood is eaten away by the beetles, this joint, the wire's going to get loose and the joint's not going to be good. But great thing about these joints is you just put the screwdriver back in and you can tighten them up. Now, if it's not clear how I'm doing the twitching, in the way I'm holding the wire and then wrapping it round to get it to tighten, just let me know in the comments, and I'll do a quick video on how to do the twitch. But it's a great simple method because it's just all you need is a bit of wire and something to, you know, turn it with.
Yeah. Spiders live in the wild.
They do live in the wild. Spiders live pretty much everywhere, guys. Hey, Angus.
What?
On a house block about this size, how many spiders do you think there are?
38?
38 is an excellent guess, but not for the reason you think.
Oh.
A lot more than 38.
170. Too far?
Not enough.
Is it lesser?
No, lots more. Lots more.
That's more.
What's the biggest number that you know?
1,100,000.
Ooh, 1,100,000.
Yeah.
Okay, well, not that many.
That is the only big number I thought of.
Well, the answer is roughly 38,000. That's why I said you were pretty close. 38. That was a good guess.
Side of the house?
Yeah, why not on the other side?
Yeah, why don't you run and get it? Dig. Dig it hole with Dad.
Thanks.
Alright, I'm going.
Oh, Angus says he's tougher than you. Okay, that's great. Thank you, Angus.
Did he say why?
Because he got the earwigs off the chair.
Yes, Lee didn't just suddenly get showered with them, did he?
Yep. He said he did it for me.
I'm gonna dig with Daddy. Dig? Yes. Dig 2 holes.
Okay, wire cutters.
Keep getting so.
Oh!
Not funny. Dig.
Sticking it all the way in there.
That is
Yeah, look, am I laughing? Yeah, do you know why? Because it hurt. So, now.
yeah, the pizza bar. That time.
Nope. Keep going, Pop. Yeah, right, let's go put those pieces in bed, please. So there it is. It's all done. We're gonna in the next videos we're gonna be using this sawhorse a fair bit as because it's much easier to hold the round timbers on this than it is on a flatter bench. So stay tuned for those. I want to really thank Mitch Brown because really it was his encouragement that got me back in the horse with doing the videos because like I said before, the press one didn't do so well. I think it only got 100 and something views, And yeah, I was really hoping for more. And with the lack of comments and the lack of questions, the lack of engagement, I just haven't had the motivation. I haven't sort of really seen that there was any reason to keep doing the videos, because I didn't really think that there was really anyone that was enjoying them. So Mitch saying that he did, and he valued them, and he wanted to see the next one, that, well, here it is. So Mitch, really hope you enjoy it. And yeah, I'll see you guys now, if you're new to YouTube, if you're new to YouTube, remember, if you want to know the videos when they come out, you've got to hit the subscribe button and you've got to click on the bell. So make sure you do that, otherwise you'll miss something. Oh, and the latest clue for the beehive giveaway, because it's still running, is in the comments, because I'm going to have to think about it.